to make sure that the president and his team have the best intelligence that we can deliver. It is hugely important.
The question is, what do you do to human beings in U.S. custody? Bloody Gina! You are a torturer! Bloody Gina!
America, that man getting dragged out of the United States Senate belongs to a group that calls itself a peace movement. Last Sunday, the Justice Department opened up a federal grand jury in Manhattan. It's basically a secret court panel that decides if there's enough evidence to charge someone, specifically targeting the man investigators believe to be funding the group for years. $278 million out of Shanghai into Code Pink, into the People's Forum, into every organization that's been showing up into every city every time that there is an anti-ICE protest, a pro-Hamas rally, or anything else on an approved schedule. And the guy that the DOJ is now looking at has been on the FBI's radar since the year that Nixon resigned.
The Department of Justice launching a grand jury probe into alleged financial crimes by tech tycoon Neville Roy Singham and his funding of Marxist, socialist, and communist-based groups here in America. I've been reporting on the China-based American for years. Fox Digital also did an investigation in March, quote, documenting how Singham pumped $285 million from his base in Shanghai.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. His name is Neville Roy Singham. American citizen, born in this country, made his fortune running a tech consulting company called ThoughtWorks. In 2017, he sold that company to a PE, a private equity firm called Apex Partners, for approximately $785 million. Then, you guys, he moved to Shanghai. This wasn't a vacation here, a move. He packed up all of his things and then went to China and started sending money back home. And here's what federal prosecutors are looking into right now. $278 million. That is the amount that the DOJ is looking at right now, specifically how it allegedly moved from Singham's financial network into the web of American nonprofit organizations. The charges that they're investigating include wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. Wire fraud means that he was using a phone call or a bank transfer to steal money. Bank fraud means that he's lying to a bank to move money. Money laundering means that he's hiding dirty money and where it came from and running it through a business that looks real, that's actually not real. The grand jury opened June 29th, 2026. Our acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, authorized it. The U.S. attorney, Jay Clayton, the man who runs the federal court in Manhattan, is leading the case. Subpoenas have already went out. That means legal orders forcing people to hand over documents like bank records, financial files from every organization inside this particular network. And you guys, for the YouTube purposes here, I got to say this, no charges have been filed yet. That is my disclaimer here. Keep that in mind for every number and every name that follows in this video here. That's the disclaimer. But here is what is already on paper. The money allegedly flowed into 4 shell companies, or shells. A shell company is basically a fake business set up to move money without leaving a clear trail. We're talking about $167.5 million went into something called the People's Support Foundation. The People's Support Foundation was registered in 2017 at a hotel address. Nobody was there. Keep that in mind. $68.7 million went to the Justice and Education Fund, registered at a UPS store address in New York City in 2018. $22.4 million went to the People's Forum. This is one that actually has an address on West 37th Street in Manhattan. That organization does large-scale protests across the country, all right? $16.7 million went into Tricontinental, a self-described Marxist think tank situation in Massachusetts. Then that money moved again into Code Pink. Code Pink sounds familiar, right? Into an activist media operations, into groups that have been staging coordinated actions in American cities for years, specifically over the last couple years. Now, my friends, the mechanisms. How did the money travel? According to Fox News, the federal investigators, the Goldman Sachs Philanthropy Fund. You guys ready? Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest names in American banking, their charity arm called Philanthropy Fund, meaning a middle account basically that lets donors send money without a clear paper trail. That was the pipeline here, alongside two other shell companies that have since been shut down. This is not a back alley cash operation here. The dirtiest money in America was moving through the most respectable financial plumbing system, quote unquote, that you can absolutely find.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I have to say that some of this is speculative because so little is known for certain, and like a good Maoist, Mr. Singham works hard to hide what he's doing, and our nonprofit sector makes that easy. But there's been some very good reporting, especially from the New York Times on this, which uses the number hundreds of millions of dollars Mr. Singham has spent to try to influence politics in America and other countries as well, through a vast number of groups. All those groups do different things, but one thing they do is exactly what you say. They all push communist China propaganda.
None of these groups registered under FARA. If you guys aren't familiar with it, FARA, that is the Foreign Agent Registration Act. That law says that if you're doing work with the foreign government inside the United States, you basically have to tell the United States that, hey, I'm doing business with them. You got to file paperwork. You got to say, hey, I'm acting on behalf of another country here. Nobody put their hand up, obviously, right? Obviously, nobody said, hey, I'm working with foreign adversaries. No, they didn't. They registered as charities, tax-exempt American nonprofits, getting the exact same legal protection as food banks and children's hospitals, okay? Well, if federal investigators have this right, running a foreign influence operation with the none other than the Chinese Communist Party. And your tax dollars, my tax dollars, help subsidize it. Because when a nonprofit doesn't pay taxes, the rest of us Americans cover the difference. Oh boy, you guys better buckle up, because the timeline tells the story. Walk it with me, okay? Before 2017, Code Pink, was a left-wing anti-war group with actual positions. They criticized China's human rights record. They called out abuse of Uyghur Muslims in China. They had things that they were against. February 2017, Neville Singham married Jodie Evans, if that name sounds familiar. She's the co-founder of Code Pink. And they got married in Jamaica. They called the wedding Revolutionary Love, okay? And get this, after 2017, Code Pink, they went silent on China. They didn't go quieter. They went absolutely silent. The Muslim abuse in China vanished. The human rights language, it just disappeared like David Copperfield. Code Pink started framing any American criticism of China as anti-Asian racism. The approved enemy became American foreign policy, not anything the Chinese government was actually doing. The positions changed. The funding started. All of it. The same year.
Here we enter a time that is just like when we started Code Pink. There were lies, there was hate, it was being driven by the media and those in power. And here we are again, but this time it's with China. And this is a whole different, game. So, it's really gonna be up to all of us to work to down-regulate, as my son would say, all the hate and the lies, and to be spreading the truth.
The enemy is never China. The enemy is always America. American warmongering, American propaganda, American racism against Asian communities. Now, according to the Washington Examiner and Fox News, approximately a quarter of Code Pink's total donations since 2017 came from entities linked to Neville Singham. And Jodie Evans, the woman getting handed the Capitol Police for American cameras, is reportedly the target in this federal investigation herself. She sat on the U.S. board of multiple organizations inside the network. She's not a bystander here. She's the actual document.
Ilhan Omar's 23-year-old daughter, who looks almost exactly like her, is named Isra Hirsi. You can see her picture here on the screen. She traveled with a group abroad to visit Cuba ostensibly for humanitarian reasons. But if you peel back the layers of the onion just a little bit, you will see the real reason that Isra Hirsi traveled to Cuba.
The People's Forum, $22 million from Shanghai. West 37th Street, New York, was formally tagged in the United States Department as a Chinese influence operation. Not alleged here, not suspected, actually tagged. So everything that I just said, actually tagged on record by our own government. And the People's Forum sponsored a trip to Cuba. That trip to Cuba included Ilhan Omar's daughter and Jodie Evans. That happened recently. Ilhan, family reunion, Omar's public response was that she was incredibly proud of her daughter. The State Department tags the group. The group funds the trip. The Congresswoman posts her pride about it. Trust me, you guys, no mainstream outlet spent more than 4 paragraphs connecting those 3 sentences together. There is a document sitting in federal archives that makes the quote unquote new McCarthyism defense absolutely impossible. It's dated 1974. In 1974, the year that Nixon resigned, the year that Singham was in his early 20s, the FBI opened up a file on him. Their assessment, in their exact words, potentially dangerous because of the background, emotional instabilities, or activities in groups engaged in activities inimical to the United States. Inimical, I had to look it up too, you guys, means hostile to, working against. The FBI wasn't describing a random college kids in its 20s with bad opinions. They were describing Neville Roy Singham, specifically 22 years ago. So the next time that Code Pink calls the investigation, quote unquote, new McCarthyism, which is exactly what their leader said the week before the grand jury was announced, you have a federal document from before disco was even popular that says the concern about the specific man is not new, not partisan, and did not start with Donald Trump. It started before Jodie Evans was even old enough to vote.
People are really insensitive in how they talk about things and how they talk about China. They don't deal with these issues as like we're dealing with human beings. If out of the White House and out of the Pentagon are coming these ideas of we need to be angry at China and China's the enemy and China's doing this wrong and that wrong, and that's going to trickle down because then they're going to be to blame by people who are angry.
The McCarthyism argument goes like this. You're concerned about China as manufactured hatred, and anyone asking about the money is feeding anti-Asian racism. Okay. Joseph MacArthur went after people he couldn't prove were working for the foreign government. The DOJ is examining a man who sold his company, moved to Shanghai, registered nonprofits at hotel addresses, ran money through Goldman Sachs charity accounts, and allegedly spent $278 million back into the United States to fund activist organizations. Okay, I want to be fair here. Those are slight different situations, but yes, my friends, both involve federal investigators asking uncomfortable questions. Very, very similar, particularly the same thing. My friends, we've seen this move before. Performance outrage. We see it every weekend. The activist groups or the politicians publicly attack who they're privately cooperating with. The outrage is for the cameras. The pandering is for the cameras. The cooperation is always for the money. Code Pink shows up to Senate hearings to get arrested, calls Pete Hegseth a war criminal, calls the CIA director confirmations a sham, calls the American government an empire that needs to fail. All while Code Pink, if the DOJ has this right, which I think they do, is cashing checks from a man who shares office space with the Chinese Communist Party propaganda operations in Shanghai. The cameras are on. That is the entire policy here, my friends. But here's the piece that shuts down any remaining defense, at least in my opinion. The left, they confirmed it themselves. Hassan Piker, a left-wing streamer, not a conservative commentator, not a Fox News contributor, publicly named Singham last month as the financier, behind these political networks. In his own words, political movements, despite a non-profit veneer. When your own side is describing the veneer out loud in public on a video, you have lost the right to call this a right-wing smear campaign. The receipts didn't come from the right. It came from inside the building.
No justice! No peace! No racism! No justice! No peace!
We need to abolish ICE. We need to abolish any system that is oppressive towards its people.
We still fully intend to defund DC police. The DC police have pushed back even against the tepid reforms.
Every one of those signs at protests was made somewhere. Every bus that was chartered, it was chartered by someone. Every chant was rehearsed on a Zoom call or in a group before at a training event that somebody paid for. The People's Forum, $22 million from Shanghai, has documented personnel overlapped with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. The same people run both organizations, according to congressional investigators. The PSL printed on signs, coordinated logistics, and helped people stage anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles last summer. According to Fox News and federal investigators, this network runs 223 separate transactions, $591 million total, 67 organizations, 5 continents. But any purple-haired nose ring individual at those protests or the organizers will tell you that this is grassroots. The grand jury is looking at the wire transfers. Let me tell you what this cost you personally. Every dollar this alleged foreign influence operation moved through tax-exempt organizations, which means every dollar that they didn't pay taxes on, is a dollar that the rest of us, you and me, cover. But there's a number beyond the $278 million. The Bitcoin Policy Institute released a report showing that activists linked to Shanghai have blocked or stalled more than $23 billion in AI and data center investments across 14 states. $23 billion in jobs and infrastructure just sitting there because organizations that allegedly received foreign money kept filing complaints, organizing opposition, and running coordinated campaigns against those particular projects. It's not a protest, my friends. That is economic warfare funded from Shanghai, executed through our own tax code against our own economy. The People's Forum is not just allegedly connected to Chinese-funded networks. It's formally tagged by the United States Department as a Chinese influence operation. Our government, our designation on record, and the People's Forum, this United States Department tagged Chinese influence operation, used the exact same infrastructure to sponsor trips to Cuba, trips that included Jodie Evans, trips that included Ilhan Omar's daughter. According to investigative reporting from the Manhattan Institute, those Cuba brigades are not cultural exchange programs. They're vetting processes for participants going back for decades and decades, has historically included questions about willingness to use violence as a tool for revolution. Not defense violence, revolutionary violence, guys. Jodie Evans, reportedly a target in a federal grand jury investigation, was on that trip. Isra, the daughter of a sitting United States Congresswoman, was on that trip, invited by the People's Forum, which the State Department has flagged as Chinese influence operations, which received $22 million from a man that the DOJ is now investigating. And that man the DOJ is investigating kept his U.S. citizenship the entire time. That means every legal protection this country has, the right to trial, the right to due process, protection for unreasonable search, those protections are his. The man who investigators say spent decades allegedly running a foreign government's influence operation through your nonprofit tax code is entitled to every right that hardworking American citizens earned. That is not an accusation. That is the Constitution working exactly as it was written. It's also the most expensive irony in America right now.
He has a footprint in India, South Africa, London, and is quite active in the United States, funding a network of nonprofit organizations to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And he's not just funding activism. What we find is he's funding and exporting an authoritarian-aligned ideology under the banner of like American nonprofit legitimacy. So what is being built here is not a protest movement. I really view it as infrastructure for a deeply un-American campaign to destabilize the country from within.
The congressional letter starts years and years ago. Rubio sent one in 2023. Grassley sent a FARA referral. Tom Cotton wrote to the AG. The House Oversight Committee issued subpoenas. For years, anybody who pointed at this network was told the concern was, quote unquote, manufactured, that the connections were imaginary, that asking questions itself is the problem. Last Sunday, the Southern District of New York opened a grand jury. The funny thing about federal subpoenas is they don't care how long you've been calling the concern fake. America, she gets arrested in Senate hallways. She screams at cabinet secretaries on camera. She has made anti-war her face, her brand, her fundraising pitch, her entire identity. And the grand jury's first question for Jodie Evans, it's not about war. It's about the wire transfers. Code Pink walked into every hearing room in Washington carrying, if the DOJ has it right, Chinese Communist Party money, then stood in every hallway and told every reporter that the people asking about where the money is coming from is racist. The FBI opened the file in 1974. The money started flowing in 2017. The grand jury, it was open last week. Revolutionary Love had a 52-year head start on accountability, and it just ran out of road. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.